January 24, 2025, the Taiwan Strait. At first light, the sea looks ordinary, but every intelligence satellite, radar dish, and submarine sonar in the Pacific knows what this morning means. The United States Navy is about to sail through one of the most heavily contested waterways on the planet, and the world is watching, listening, to see who blinks first. The order for the mission came from the 7th Fleet less than 24 hours earlier. Intelligence satellites had picked up unusual activity: more patrol aircraft, more signals, more silence on Chinese military channels. In the Pacific, silence often means preparation. The United States could have chosen to wait, but deterrence isn't built on hesitation, it's built on presence. And that's why the John Finn was here, to remind every radar screen within 1,000 miles that international waters remain exactly that, international. At 5:11 local time, the USS John Finn, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, begins her transit. On paper, it's a standard freedom of navigation patrol. In reality, it's a quiet confrontation with global consequences. Because in the Taiwan Strait, no movement is routine. Every radar sweep, every heading change, every radio ping carries political weight. Below deck, the ship's Combat Information Center glows in blue light. The Aegis combat system hums steadily, processing thousands of data points per second: radar tracks, emissions, surface echoes. The picture it builds is alive, shifting, and impossibly complex. At 5:37, a new contact appears: two Shenyang J-16 fighter jets, inbound at nearly Mach 1. Their radar signatures are unmistakable. The ship's systems quietly tag and track them. For the sailors watching the displays, this is where calm professionalism begins. They've rehearsed this countless times. No one speaks or panics, they just work. Around them, the destroyer hums like a living machine: air handlers, turbines, the rhythmic pulse of radar dishes rotating above the deck. Each sailor knows their role by instinct. There's no shouting, no chaos, only quiet precision. A 19-year-old radar operator tracks the incoming contacts, while a veteran petty officer double-checks the communication logs for anomalies. This is what American training looks like: calm, deliberate confidence under the weight of global scrutiny. The Chinese aircraft close fast. Each carries long-range PL-15 air-to-air missiles, but their goal isn't combat, it's presence. The pilots stay just outside engagement range, letting their radar sweeps wash over the destroyer. It's a deliberate show of proximity. Minutes later, the ship's electronic warfare suite detects a low, pulsing interference, the signature of a Y-9 electronic warfare aircraft. The Y-9 begins testing frequencies, pushing small bursts of jamming energy toward the destroyer's antennas. The American systems adapt automatically, shifting frequencies faster than human reaction. It's invisible warfare, measured in milliseconds. And the John Finn stays unbothered. The ship holds course at 18 knots, calm, steady, and unshaken. At 6:03, the sonar team calls out a faint trace beneath the surface. It's no fishing trawler. The sound profile matches a Type 039A Yuan-class submarine, moving slow, deep, and parallel to the destroyer's path. The contact holds steady. Every few minutes, sonar pings echo through the water, soft, almost polite, but unmistakably targeted. It's the acoustic equivalent of eye contact. The Yuan-class submarine isn't hunting, it's shadowing, recording, testing. Submariners call it ghost riding, and it's the kind of maneuver that pushes nerves to their limits. Yet the John Finn maintains formation, her sonar operators marking every faint echo while the bridge officers pretend the ocean below is empty. Now, the confrontation spans 3 dimensions: fighters above, a submarine below, and surface vessels moving in from the east. To the crew, this is precisely why they train as they do. The John Finn's captain, Commander O'Neill, knows that in this narrow body of water, every decision will be analyzed by Washington, Beijing, and a dozen allied capitals. His job is simple on paper, impossible in practice: assert freedom of navigation, and don't start a war. For the U.S. Navy, these confrontations aren't surprises, they're studies. Every pass, every radar lock, every burst of static becomes data for the next generation of ships and sailors. Each time an American vessel enters the strait, the playbook evolves. And while headlines call it provocation, the professionals know it's calibration. It's how superpowers talk when words fail them, through sonar pulses, radar sweeps, and perfectly timed silence. At 6:18, one of the J-16's breaks formation and dives. Its engines howl as it drops to just a few hundred feet above the water, heading straight for the destroyer. Inside the Combat Information Center, radar systems react instantly. The SPY-1D array calculates velocity, altitude, and distance, and the Aegis computer quietly builds an engagement solution. It's automated precision, cold and unflinching. Target lock flashes briefly across one monitor, confirmation that the destroyer could defend itself at any moment, but no one touches the trigger. The missile tubes stay sealed. The Phalanx CIWS turrets rotate, tracking the aircraft but holding their fire. The J-16 screams overhead, its afterburners shaking the deck plates, and climbs back into the clouds. For the sailors who feel that vibration under their boots, it's not fear, it's focus. They understand that the real strength of the U.S. Navy isn't aggression, it's control. 15 minutes later, a new contact appears on radar. The planned destroyer Hefei, closing in from starboard. At 10 nautical miles, her Type 346A radar lights up the horizon. The Hefei is one of China's most advanced surface combatants, bristling with long-range YJ-18 anti-ship missiles. Above, the J-16 circle back. The Y-9 continues to jam. Beneath the surface, the Yuan-class sub maintains a steady shadow. It's now a textbook containment maneuver. Surround, intimidate, observe. The John Finn's computers map every vector: altitude, bearing, range. If the Hefei launched, the destroyer would have less than 20 seconds to respond. If the submarine fired, maybe 40. The math leaves no room for error. At 6:47, the Hefei's fire control radar suddenly spikes. It's brief, only 2 seconds, but unmistakable. That's a targeting lock. Inside the John Finn, alarms flash red. Weapon systems shift from standby to armed. Missile cells prime. Every sailor moves in disciplined sequence, waiting for the captain's call. Reynolds watches the screens and says one word: hold. The systems stay hot and the crew stays ready, but the trigger remains untouched. 2 seconds of silence in the Combat Information Center feel like a lifetime. Yet in that silence, power speaks louder than any weapon. At 7:03, the situation reaches its peak. The Hefei crosses directly ahead of the American destroyer, a calculated show of defiance. Simultaneously, the two Chinese fighters dive again in a bracket formation, one high, one low. Inside the John Finn, the Aegis computer tracks both targets automatically. For a brief moment, American and Chinese weapon systems are mutually locked. The screens are alive with data: closure rates, missile trajectories, predicted impact zones. For 5 long seconds, the Pacific balances on a knife's edge. Inside the Combat Information Center, every display flashes crimson. The radar operators can see the enemy's lock, and they know what it means. One twitch of a control stick, one sensor glitch, and both sides unleash chaos. Yet no one raises their voice. No one breaks procedure. The captain's eyes never leave the tactical map. Around him, sailors hold their breath, not out of fear, but focus. In that suspended heartbeat, American discipline outweighs Chinese aggression. Then, the J-16 climb. The Hefei veers off course. The submarine fades from sonar, and the John Finn continues south, unflinching, unchallenged, and undefeated. By 7:37, the destroyer clears the southern boundary of the strait. The crew finally exhales. No weapons were fired, no lives lost, but everyone on board understands how close the world came to the edge. In Beijing, state television frames the encounter as a defensive response. In Washington, the Pentagon calls it routine operations. Both statements are technically true and completely insufficient, because what happened in those 96 minutes was far more than routine. It was a full-spectrum test of American resolve, executed across air, sea, and subsurface domains, and the result was decisive. The U.S. Navy didn't just hold its ground, it owned the battle space without firing a single shot. The data collected from that morning, radar emissions, electronic fingerprints, acoustic returns, now lives deep inside classified archives. It will shape how future destroyers fight, and how future sailors train. But the most important lesson from that day can't be graphed or simulated. It's discipline. In a world that measures power by volume, the U.S. Navy proves that silence can be deafening. Real deterrence isn't about who can shoot first, it's about who can stand calm when everyone else trembles. And that's what separates the professionals from the provocateurs. Weeks later, analysts across the Pacific call it a non-incident. But those who were there know better. The radar locks were real, the flight paths were dangerous, and the escalation chain was primed. And it was the restraint, not the weapons, that prevented disaster. For the crew of the John Finn, it wasn't luck, it was mastery. The kind of composure built over decades, refined in endless drills, and passed from one generation of sailors to the next. In the Taiwan Strait that morning, a single American warship demonstrated what dominance really looks like. Surrounded, jammed, and targeted from above and below, yet completely in control. The Pacific, they say, is a contested sea, but that day it wasn't a contest at all. Because in the quiet, disciplined hands of the U.S. Navy, the red line in the strait was never crossed, and the balance of power in the Pacific remained exactly where it's always been. History may never remember the names of the sailors aboard that ship, but their actions echo quietly through the ocean they protect. Every rotation of that radar, every disciplined decision, adds one more invisible layer of deterrence to the Pacific. It's easy to measure strength in missiles or tonnage, but the real measure is resolve. And that morning, America's resolve filled the strait like a rising tide, steady, silent, and unstoppable. In the end, power isn't proven by how loud you speak, but by how steady you stand. The U.S. Navy proved that once again in the strait. If you believe in the strength that keeps the Pacific free, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this story so more people understand what it takes to hold the line.